While the world chases high-tech virtual reality flight simulators, the elite instructors at global defense schools are returning to something surprisingly low-tech: physical models. Why are NATO's top strategists using scale model Gripens to master high-tempo operations? It turns out that holding the hardware is the only way to truly grasp the logistical genius of Sweden's modular architecture. In a modern conflict, speed is everything, yet complex fighters often fail under pressure. We are using physical Saab Gripen replicas to show you exactly how Sweden's logistical simplicity outpaces its billion-dollar competitors. See how rapid multi-role transitions allow this jet to pivot between mission profiles in minutes, proving that tangible hardware is the ultimate tool for mastering cost-effective aerial warfare. Inside the world's most exclusive defense academies, a simple physical model is the key to winning 2026's most intense aerial engagements. We are dissecting the Saab Gripen's modular design to reveal how NATO forces use these replicas to visualize rapid response strategy. Discover why this hands-on approach to multi-role versatility is the secret weapon for outmaneuvering more complex adversaries in a high-tempo theater. What if the future of air power is not hidden inside a billion-dollar simulator? What if it is sitting on a table in the form of a physical scale model? In 2026, while the world talks about artificial intelligence, stealth jets, virtual reality, and sixth-generation fighters, some of the most serious defense classrooms still return to something surprisingly simple: a fighter jet model that commanders can touch, rotate, open, move, and study with their own hands. And the aircraft at the center of this conversation is not the biggest jet. It is not the loudest name in the global fighter market. It is the Saab Gripen E, a Swedish fighter built around one dangerous idea. In a modern war, the aircraft that survives may not be the most expensive one. It may be the one that can move faster, adapt quicker, and return to the fight before the enemy even understands what happened. Imagine a NATO planning room. A snowy map of Northern Europe is spread across the table. Small runway markers are placed across highways, forest roads, and temporary airstrips. Officers are not wearing VR headsets. They are leaning over a physical Gripen model, moving it from one location to another. Why? Because physical models create a different kind of understanding. Virtual reality can show you a battlefield, but a model makes you feel the aircraft as a real object. You can see its size, you can understand its balance, you can visualize how equipment, weapons, sensors, and maintenance access points change the mission. This is where the Gripen becomes fascinating. The Gripen E is not just a fighter jet, it is a lesson in modular warfare. Its design allows commanders to understand how one aircraft can shift from air defense to strike, from reconnaissance to maritime operations, without needing an entirely different platform. And when officers physically move parts on a model, they see something important. The Gripen is built around speed of change. That is the hidden advantage. Not just speed in the air, but speed on the ground, speed in decision-making, and speed in survival.
Most people judge fighter jets by top speed, radar range, missiles, or stealth. But in real war, another question matters just as much. How fast can this aircraft be repaired, rearmed, upgraded, and sent back into combat? The Gripen's design philosophy is brutally practical. It is not trying to be a flying palace of complexity. It is built to be maintained under pressure, in harsh weather, with limited manpower and away from perfect airbases. That is why its modular architecture matters. The Gripen E uses an open and adaptable avionics approach, meaning new systems, sensors, weapons, and mission software can be integrated more easily compared with older closed designs. In simple words, the aircraft is designed to evolve. This is not just engineering, this is strategy. A country does not only buy a fighter jet for today's war, it buys a fighter for the next 20 or 30 years of unknown threats. Drones will change, missiles will change, electronic warfare will change, radar systems will change. The Gripen's answer is simple. Do not replace the whole aircraft every time the battlefield changes. Upgrade the brain, swap the tools, keep the platform alive. When you compare this with heavier stealth competitors, the contrast becomes clear. Some aircraft are extremely powerful, but also deeply integrated, expensive, and maintenance-heavy. The Gripen chooses another path: flexibility over luxury, availability over perfection, and rapid turnaround over showroom dominance. In my opinion, that is what makes the Gripen dangerous. It does not try to win the marketing war, it tries to win the logistics war. Now picture this: a Gripen lands on a cold road base somewhere in northern Europe. Snow is pushed to the side. The runway is not a glamorous airbase. It is a public highway converted into a temporary launch point. The aircraft rolls in. A small ground crew moves fast. Fuel, weapons, inspection, mission change. In one scenario, the jet returns from an air defense patrol. Minutes later, it is prepared for a maritime strike role. On a model, this transition looks simple, but in real war, that simplicity is the result of decades of design discipline.
This is the Swedish philosophy. Do not let the enemy know where your air force sleeps. Fixed bases are powerful, but they are also predictable. In a missile-heavy conflict, a known airbase can become a target in the first hours of war. Sweden understood this long before it joined NATO. That is why Gripen culture is connected to dispersed operations, aircraft operating from roads, small bases, and temporary locations. For NATO commanders, this changes the mental map. Instead of thinking, where is our main airbase, they start thinking, how many launch points can we create? How quickly can we move? How fast can we reallocate aircraft, weapons, fuel, and crews? This is where tactile training becomes powerful. A physical model lets officers rehearse movement, maintenance, spacing, and mission change in a way that feels immediate. You are not just watching a simulation, you are touching the tempo of war. And this is why the Gripen is suddenly more relevant than ever. Recent reports in 2026 have again pushed Gripen into the global defense spotlight, especially because of Ukraine's interest and Sweden's growing role inside NATO. At the same time, countries looking for fighter aircraft are not only asking which jet is the most advanced, they are asking a harder question: which jet can we actually afford to fly, sustain, upgrade, and deploy under pressure? That question is changing the fighter market. The Gripen is attracting attention because it represents a different kind of power. Not the power of having a small number of extremely expensive aircraft sitting safely inside protected bases, but the power of having a larger, more available, more adaptable fleet that can keep operating when the battlefield becomes chaotic.
That is a very important point. In prolonged conflict, the winner is not always the side with the most impressive platform on paper. The winner is often the side that can keep aircraft flying day after day, replace losses, repair damage, shift missions, and keep pressure on the enemy. This is where cost per flight hour and maintenance burden become strategic weapons. A jet that is too expensive to fly regularly can become a political symbol. A jet that can fly often becomes a military tool. Here is my personal view. The Gripen is not trying to replace every stealth fighter. That would be the wrong argument. Stealth has a role. Heavy fighters have a role. Deep strike platforms have a role. But the Gripen asks a different question. What happens after the first wave of war? After the opening strikes? After air bases are threatened? After supply chains are stretched? After commanders need aircraft that can operate from rough conditions, change roles quickly, and remain affordable enough to keep flying? That is where the Gripen becomes more than an aircraft. It becomes a doctrine. Its future-proofing concept is one of its strongest advantages. If the threat changes, you upgrade sensors. If electronic warfare changes, you adapt systems. If new weapons become necessary, the aircraft's open design makes integration easier. This is why physical models are still useful. They allow commanders to see the aircraft not as a single machine, but as a system of choices. Where is the access point? What can be swapped? How fast can the crew respond? How does one small design decision change battlefield tempo? These questions do not feel abstract when the model is in your hands. So, what is the real Gripen advantage? It is not only speed. It is not only price. It is not only modular design. The real advantage is philosophy. Sweden built a fighter for a country that could not afford to lose its air force on the first day of war. A fighter that could disappear into forests, operate from roads, return quickly, and adapt as technology changed. Now, inside NATO, that philosophy matters more than ever.
Because the future of air warfare may not belong only to the most invisible aircraft, it may belong to the most available one, the one that can be moved, the one that can be upgraded, the one that can be repaired fast, the one that commanders understand not just through screens, but through touch, movement, and real-world logistics. And that is why, in 2026, a simple physical model of the Saab Gripen E can still teach one of the most advanced lessons in modern warfare. In the next conflict, survival will not only depend on who flies higher, it will depend on who can adapt faster. That is my opinion. The Gripen is not just a fighter jet, it is a warning to every Air Force that still thinks power only means size, stealth, and price. Sometimes, the smartest weapon is the one that keeps coming back. Like and subscribe to my channel for more new updates. Thanks for watching.